Ladies and gentlemen, obviously this is one of those rare cases where the cliche is true. My next guest does need no introduction, and I will not waste your time giving him one. I just want to make sure that the video connection is working. So can we make sure we have President Zelenskyy Mr. President, it's Fareed Zakaria from Aspen. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, Fareed. Good afternoon, dear audience. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you so much for doing this, Mr. President. We know you have many, many things to deal with, and we appreciate your taking time out of your schedule. We've known each other for a while, and so I think I will begin with a very frank question, which is on everyone's mind. The Ukrainian counteroffensive seems to be going more slowly and has many more difficulties than people might have anticipated. Can you tell us from your perspective why you think these difficulties are, why do you face these difficulties, and what do you need to try to overcome them?
Thank you for the question. Really a very relevant one. I would just like to draw your attention to the change of rhetorics worldwide, and I'm glad to hear that. Now we're discussing the counteroffensive in Ukraine. Ukraine is not backtracking, but progressively liberates its territories, which is very important. Last autumn, our servicemen had a powerful operation, and then they started building new brigades. Really, time matters. We did count on the time to be used to prepare counteroffensive activities, and it was in the press among the experts. We did have plans to start it in spring, but we didn't because, frankly, we had not enough munitions and armaments and not enough properly trained brigades. I mean, properly trained in these weapons. Still more that the training missions were held outside Ukraine, but still we started, and this is important. And because we started it a bit later on, it can be said, and it will be shared truth, understood by all the experts, that it provided Russia with time to mine all our lands and build several lines of defense. And definitely they had even more time than they needed. Because of that, they built more of those lines. And really, they had a lot of mines on our fields. Because of that, a slower pace of our counteroffensive actions. We didn't want to lose our people, our personnel, and our servicemen didn't want to lose equipment. Because of that, they were quite careful about the offensive actions. Still, I would say that we are approaching a moment when relevant actions can gain pace, because we are already going through some mined locations and we are demining these areas. I would like to draw your attention. This is not to complain, but just to tell you that we did lack enough of demining equipment. Now we are being helped by our partners. I'd like to thank all of our partners, President Biden, Congress, the United States, our partners in Europe. Thanks to them, thanks to the strength of our people, we had this counter-offensive started. Yes, I do understand that it's always better to see victory come sooner. This is what we also want. But the question is the price of this victory. So let us not throw people under tanks literally. Let us plan our counteroffensive as our analysts, our intelligence suggests, and some of our residential areas have been liberated already, so I do believe in our victory.
When we watch the Ukrainian movement, what I notice is you are using a large number of drones. And many of them, most of them, and this is the nature of the drones, are being lost. You're losing about 10,000 drones a month. Do you have the capacity? Do you need a massive upscaling of drones? Because that seems to me one of the areas where this could alter the battle.
Якщо чесно, ми не вирішили деякі.
Frankly speaking, we are yet to resolve certain matters related to the types of weapons in most demand, in most deficit. I would still point attention to the long-range artillery pieces. This is really important. You know, when fighting on the battlefield for our land against Russia, the key thing is our motivation. And it would be really good us to be at least on a par with them in artillery, better if we would be better. And definitely new type of armaments. The NATO types are better, but there are less of them. And definitely we don't have this balance in terms of the range. You know that they have this S-300 that they're shelling us with on a regular basis, and it's not just a matter of counteroffensive. It's the matter of resilience of our community, of our society. This is very important. People continue working, paying taxes, and this money go to pay our servicemen. Our strength is necessary, our defense is necessary for everyone. You do know that the civilians are being shelled by drones, by Shaheds on a daily basis. In the majority, it's about kamikaze drones, Shaheds and others. These are used to bomb us, our power sector, our schools, the network of schools and educational institutions, and this is really a challenge. So I would really draw attention to the long-range armaments. Again, we have been waiting for it for quite some time, and let us still have hopes and wait for it. We do hope that the United States will resolve the matter. And really, at the moment, it all depends on the lead role of the United States with its defense assistance. It is also important to note the domination in the skies. And we need to tell that Russia is clearly dominating the skies now. We are in short supply of modern warplanes. It's not just about one quality, but also about quantity of them. We are very thankful to the world for already going through with the matter of training our pilots. This is important, but besides them being trained, it would be nice to have some confidence and surety today that we are going to have these planes in necessary quantity.
President Zelenskyy, I wonder what you can tell us about what is going on in the Russian army. Your troops are encountering them. And I'm wondering, given what we saw happen in Russia over the last few weeks, do you notice that the Wagner forces are not confronting you on the battlefield, or are they back? Is there a change in Russian morale? Are you noticing something about the Russian army as a consequence of the Prigozhin attempted mutiny?
Я думаю, що ми можемо зрозуміти,
I think we can understand what is happening to the strength of the Russian army, or rather the lack of a motivation, when we see what is happening to the Russian society in the Russian Federation, what is happening in their society. Something like that has been happening on the battlefield. They're demotivated. You could see that Putin lost the strength of the vertical of his power, and the steps made by Prigozhin clearly attest to that. Same is happening in the army. They have ongoing incessant changes in the commanding staff, and this means changes for any serviceman regarding of the rank. If your commander is changed, even if your enemy is willing, then it definitely is telling. And I think this is the situation when they're out of balance because of the fact that they cannot show any victory on the battlefield. They cannot declare any victory in economy for their people. On the contrary, their people have become poorer and people are not getting richer there. And definitely they're less motivated as the servicemen are. And sometimes people who like money and survive and need to survive, they nevertheless have freedom. But in Russia, with their citizens, they don't have freedom. And because of that, they are demotivated to the most. They don't see victories in civil life, in military activities, and even those who support this policy of war and aggression of President Putin. I think this percentage is going down. We did analyze the steps by Prigozhin. We talked about that with partners. And I would say that 40, maybe 45% of Russian Federation's regions in principle supported the steps and the rhetoric of Prigozhin. In spite of him being a representative of terrorists or even the leader of terrorists himself, you can still see that even in that there is a split in the society. There is no unity in Russia now. And this is why we need to act. The world should not lose the unity, because this is the criteria of being victorious. I think, thanks to this resilience, we will be able to retain the attention of the world towards Ukrainian needs and our deficit, and I think that we will be able to attain our goal, our land, our people, peace, and respect to Ukrainian sovereignty.
A few days ago, Ukrainian forces have now acknowledged that they bombed again the Kerch Bridge, the bridge connecting Crimea to the Russian mainland. Is it a short-term objective of yours to destroy that bridge completely? And do you believe that you will be able to reclaim all of Crimea as part of this counteroffensive?
The objective is to reclaim the whole of the Crimea because it's our sovereign territory, inalienable part of our nation, and the Crimean Bridge. This is not just a logistical route. This is the route used to speed the war with ammunition, and this has been done on a daily basis. And it militarizes the Crimean Peninsula. For us, this is understandably an enemy facility built outside the law, outside the international laws and all applicable norms. So understandably, this is our objective. And any objective, any target that is bringing war, not peace, has to be neutralized.
In retaliation, it seems, the Russians have pulled out of the grain agreement. They are bombing granaries in Odessa. It's becoming much harder to send and sell Ukrainian agricultural products on world markets. Is there any solution? Have you found any way to get Ukrainian grain out now that the Russians have pulled out of the grain deal?
First of all, I think it would be a mistake to compare those two situations. These were artificially tied informationally by the Russian Federation. Let me explain it to you. Russia, since the signing of this agreement, from the first day of it. And there was, by the way, agreement involving Turkey, and there were actually two parallel agreements: us, Turkey, and United Nations, and Russia, Turkey, and United Nations. Two parallel ones working like mirrored each other. But these work to have this corridor to make it operational. And now, what Russia has been doing beyond the international laws, let me explain to you. From the beginning of the signing of these agreements, Russia would constantly, regularly block the corridor. There were vessels idling at sea, there were queues, long queues. Some would last for 2-3 weeks, up to 30 vessels sitting there, unable to either enter or exit our ports. Russia did everything to slow down the process and artificially dump the prices on the world grains markets. Much in the same vein as they did with energy sources. So nothing new for us here. And some weeks before this event, the Crimea, Russia would repeat that the agreement is to end on 17th. Because the world, the West, Europe would not comply with the requirements. And they would claim the need to lift sanctions. So that way they try twisting hands in order to have their objectives completed. And these objectives are entirely linked to their money and their political elites. That's it. Later on, they took this situation around the Crimean Bridge, using it just as an example. Just believe me, if you follow the public messages, you will clearly see it has been a scheduled approach. If not the Crimean Bridge, they would find another example, another reason to do it. This is well in the meaning of them. In spite of that, we do look for ways. We talked to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Right before this meeting with you, I had a talk with President Erdogan to discuss the crisis. We do see certain ways of going out of it. If we succeed, if Erdogan succeeds, if he is even stronger, I think everything will check okay. Anyway, everyone has to remember, the Black Sea is the sea of all the nations of ours. This is not the sea of the Russian Federation. There is Ukraine, Turkey, Romania, Bulgaria, and we are talking to all the countries in the Black Sea region. And we have very substantial, pragmatic relations, humane and legal relations. And by the way, this is very important. We have legal relations with everyone but Russia, because they think that this is their own sea.
Mr. President, we are out of time, but I want to give one person in the audience a chance to say hello to you, an old friend of yours. Krista Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada, is here. I wonder if we can get a mic to Krista so that she can just greet the President and maybe even send him a message. She can't hear you yet. Is that working?
Yet.
Try. Yeah, I think it is now. No. Krista, just come up here. Oh no, she can.
Окей. Добрий день, пане президенте. Ви мене бачите, я зараз з Фарідом.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I hope you can see me.
Ми раді, що ви тут.
Glad to see you, Christia. We're very glad to have you with us.
So let me ask you a question also, and I think this is the question in the minds of everyone here. Fareed started with, I think, the preoccupation of all of your friends in the world, which is sort of a technical question about the offensive. I saw you with Prime Minister Trudeau in June, and I was very struck by your absolute conviction in Ukraine's ultimate victory. I'd like to hear from you why you are so confident and how you see Ukraine and the world looking when this war is over. But tell us why you're so sure.
You see why I'm scared to have her on for longer, Mr. President. She'll take my job.
Okay. I'll be very quick. Христя, ми з вами розмовляли.
Dear Krista, we talked with you at the moment when I was sitting in this building. And unfortunately, the most part of my country, including Kyiv Oblast, it was under threat. Lots of territories were occupied, but even then,
our families on our side, because our children, and we love them. It's not because just we have children. No, we have children, we love them, we miss them. So this is the life. So the life is on our side. And I hope, and I think and I hope that God is on our side. We're different people, absolutely, but we live in one Ukraine, and I'm sure that the world with its unity is also on our side. That's why I'm sure that we will win.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck.